experiments they do for small children so that they would learn physics at an early age. I love this magazine. There was nothing, very little auto rotation. Very little. They have quietly expurged all these dangerous things. Imagine all the high school kids doing science projects on rotation and then arriving at flying contraptions that are so easy to build. This is exactly what Sandy Kidd did. He has two baby gyros here, spinning along the vertical shaft as a part of a big mother gyro, which helps them lift vertically. Sandy had two baby gyros, but we can have 3, 4, or n. Doesn't matter, the more the better. So all the baby gyros spin like this. The mother gyro spins along a vertical axis. And we have a lot more efficient drive because here we have spinning along 2 axes. If it's only the mother gyro, it spins along 1 axis. So it's a one degree of spinning. Here it's 1 axis here and another axis here. So this is 2 degrees of spinning. We may even have 3 degrees of spinning. If we introduce one more direction of spinning, that would be the most efficient drive. The more spinning there is, I don't know why, but the more efficient this drive becomes. Actually, we will come to the idea here. And this is an artist's impression of how such a flying saucer would look like. This is the mother gyro spinning along the periphery. The many baby gyros. The only thing that they added for direction control are these gimbals that would allow the baby gyros to be directed in any necessary desired direction of flight. The mother gyro lifts the craft off the ground and keeps it from falling. The baby gyros allow the craft to travel into, if they are directed in this way, to fly this way, if they are directed into that way. And here we have an engineering drawing how this can be made as a spinning electric motor. These are the stator coils here. This is the electric motor. These are the baby gyros inside. Not only that, but the author claims, this is Otis Carr's anti-gravity vehicle. He claims that this is a free energy drive. All such designs, immediately after they are patented, if they can ever get past the patent office, are secretly taken and financed by the Illuminati until they can see what they can squeeze out of them. Some of them are unworkable. Most of them end up brilliant working devices. And this is how they have amassed and hoarded this incredible technology that they have in their disposal.
Well, I investigated Otis T. Carr myself, and what I found out is about 1958, you were able to read in newspapers about him test flying his flying saucers, because when I was 18 I remember reading the articles. And then by 1960 his whole factory had disappeared. He had a factory in Maryland and another one in Hesperia, California.
Factory in Maryland?
Yeah, he had 2 of them.
I have a case where some strange, there was a comment here that Otis T. Carr had a whole factory for anti-gravity craft in the 60s. In the 50s he was testing flying saucers in Maryland and somewhere else. I would love to talk about this because I've also discovered some very strange things about him. He probably went black. He probably...
He got brought off. I know a guy who knows exactly what happened to him. They took him to Australia and he's working on a secret base in Australia.
In Pine Gap, in the Pine Gap facility.
Yes.
All the Australians are taken to the United States and work on the same projects. You just remove them from where everybody knows him. And the most hard evidence came unexpectedly from no other source but the Physical Review letters. Did you get it very big on the screen? Yeah. I want this the biggest possible letters. The Physical Review letters is one of the top, best, and respected academic physics journals around the world. Hayasaka and Takeuchi, 2 Japanese scholars, in December 18, 1989, had the audacity to publish a paper about an anomalous weight reduction on a gyroscope's right rotation around, again, the vertical axis on the Earth. How could they dare publish such an article? they had a standard issue aviation gyroscope suspended in a vacuum flask to eliminate any aerodynamic lift effects, suspended and balanced on a laboratory scale, micro scale. All of it was in again an insulated box. Later on they did the experiment in a magnetically insulated room that they borrowed from one of the electronics companies there. And they just feed electricity to the gyro and the gyro spins. And what they discovered was astonishing, that the higher the RPMs, from 3,000 to 13,000, the bigger the weight loss of the gyro. And here they use two types of gyros with two different masses. One is 175 grams, the other is 139 grams or something. And for right rotation, the mass decreases. For left rotation, nothing happens. The weight loss is small. The weight loss is milligrams. So we are talking between 2 and 10 milligrams. But because this is a very precision scale, for that scale to discover several milligrams missing, it's like for a normal scale to discover several pounds missing of an object that weighs 100 tons. So, what to do? I mean, the experiment caused a sensation. A lot of world articles wrote about it. Less than a month it was debunked by two authors from Colorado working on an Air Force grant. How were they able, around Christmas time and New Year, to build quite a complicated plexiglass spinning top powered by an air turbine, to machine it, to draw the drawings, machine it in the shop, assemble it together, to do the experiments over and over and over again, to write the paper, to go through the peer review, to take it to the press and to publish it 29 days later. This is impossible. They have been given the green light by the whole government establishment to debunk the paper, and their article was titled "Anomalous Reduction with a Now Weight Loss Experiment with a Now Result." They made sure that even in the title it would become obvious to the biggest dimwit that this is a hoax, that this cannot be. And effectively all research died down. By the time others had the time to create similar experiments, these came with a refutation, and I don't know of anybody else that repeated this experiment, unless they do it in private. So, let's repeat here. I've done a little analogy. Sandy Kidd had two baby gyros spinning as one along a vertical axis. There is an inventor in Phoenix who has three baby gyros, driven either by individual motor, each one of them, and then the fourth motor spins them along a vertical axis, or by one motor, doesn't matter. In a Russian experiment, they have four baby gyros, each spinning left or right, mounted on a mother gyro that also can spin left and right. However, here, these are on a horizontal axis. In the Russian experiment, they have put them on an axis that has less than 180 degrees. But the physical principle is the same. And what the Russians discovered is that they spun the baby gyros, all of them in one direction. Left, 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 left. All of them in the other direction. Right, 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 right. And then they did all other combinations. Left, left, right, right. Or left, right, left, right. And they discovered that when they spin them in this left, right pattern, they were getting the biggest weight reduction. So when we think about it, left, right spinning, we have a rotational quadrupole. 4 poles always chasing each other and never being able to catch each other. Maybe, among other fundamental things in physics, the swastika is also a representation of a quadrupolar anti-gravity drive. This is a working machine, desktop device that would cost probably $2,000 to $3,000 to produce in this country. That has many other fantastic applications other than anti-gravity, that was built in a Russian institute. So let us repeat the whole physics of anti-gravity. We discover that one does not need element 115 to obtain anti-gravity, as we don't need element 115 to run our cars to make an internal combustion engine or to make an electric motor. Any metal conductor on this planet moved in a magnetic field generates electricity, or vice versa. If you run electricity through a magnetic conductor, through an electric loop in a magnetic field, you would make it to move. You would create an electric motor. It's an inseparable property of matter to behave in this way in a magnetic field, as is the property of matter to behave anti-gravitically if it is spun along a vertical axis. We don't need element 115 to go to the other stars and planets. Only the government needs this hoax, and the bankers, actually the bankers behind them, because they'll be selling us this super expensive fuel way into the future. Simple rotation is the secret of anti-gravity, and if we use some folk wisdom, the faster you spin it, the better. If you spin the hell out of it, it would lift off and fly away. This is kind of a folksy bottom lining of this 4-hour lecture on anti-gravity. If we go into the metaphysics a little bit, a helicopter propeller basically screws itself into the atmosphere of a planet and pulls the craft upward. An anti-gravity drive resembles an etheric screw, an etheric whirlwind that screws itself into the etheric matrix around the planet and allows the craft to go up. But unlike the atmosphere, the helicopter can fly as high as there's atmosphere. When the atmosphere stops, the helicopter cannot fly further because there would be nothing for the propeller to grab and to hold onto. There would be no atmosphere. But with anti-gravity, these etheric field around the planet obviously is a lot bigger, and wherever it finishes, then we have the next one of the moon or the sun beginning. So you don't have empty space of no etheric whirlwind influence, which allows for an anti-gravity craft to go from the Earth to the moon, from the Earth to the sun, between planets, between 2 stars, very easily. So basically, how is this etheric vortex created? We can think of an anti-gravity drive in analogy to the egg beater beating the eggs, swirling them around and beating them into a vortex. We can think of an anti-gravity drive as an ether beater, when either a brutal mass starts spinning around, or some fine energy field starts rotating around the craft. All these things work like the beating wings of an egg beater that beat on the ether and make it spin around. And this etheric vortex is actually the power that lifts the craft upward. Now, some experiments to prove that our theory is correct. Actually, I was thinking of doing one, but buying a doll for my daughter, for my baby daughter, I ended up buying twice more expensive present for myself. This is a, as it always happens, you end up with a toy train for yourself instead of. This is a styrofoam saucer sold at Toys R Us. Nobody can. I mean, there have been so many cases of the NSA arresting inventors the moment they create something that flies. The moment, this is a threshold point, the point of no return. Once you make something that flies and proves the theory, that's it, you disappear. You go black, they will buy you off, they will kill you off, whatever. As long as you don't do that, it is just tabloid, cranky stories. So I was thinking of very much of doing something like that, and then I see that actually the guys at Toys R Us have already made it. Let's analyze this saucer with the knowledge that we have. This is a piston engine here from a very small model plane, a model piston engine that spins a propeller in a vertical shaft. So this is a ducted fan, ducted because the propeller, the fan, is in a duct. This is a ducted fan configuration of an air cushion vehicle, because the air that is compressed downward kind of pushes the craft up. But there's a catch here. And the catch is the following. This craft cannot fly under the power of the gasoline engine alone. You can start the engine, you would leave it on the ground and it would never lift off. You have to pre-spin the body of the craft. The model is about this big. When you throw it in the air, you have to pre-spin it by hand with the engine running. To throw it by spinning it. And if you spin it clockwise, it wouldn't fly either. You have to spin it only counterclockwise, exactly as the experiments in anti-gravity that we talked earlier. So what happens is, let's repeat, it would not fly under the power of the engine alone. We can start the engine and leave it on the ground, it would never lift off. I bet after this tape all these models would disappear from Toys R Us. I can bet. It would not fly if it is pre-spun by hand in the clockwise direction. The only way for it to fly is if it's pre-spun in the anti-clockwise direction. And it would lift off about 180 meters before exhausting the gasoline, and then it would come down. Now, once we pre-spin it, it's kind of a jump start. After that, the engine itself rotates the styrofoam. It's a very light styrofoam body of a craft. By number one, there is this reaction of the propeller. The propeller rotates one way, the engine tries to rotate the other way, because the engine is bolted to the styrofoam body. It rotates the body in the other way. Also, the two mounting planks or brackets, plastic brackets, for the engine mount that run from the walls of the ducted fan to the engine and back to the wall again, they are also shaped as a propeller, but in the opposite inclination to this one. So when the compressed air jet comes downward from the propeller and hits the brackets, it would work toward spinning the outer shell in the necessary direction. So basically, three things help the craft fly. The reaction of the engine spinning the body, number one. The additional force, spinning momentum that comes from the special shaping of the engine mounting brackets, like a secondary propeller. And the third and most important, the kickstart, comes from the manual pre-spinning of the craft at takeoff. There are no helicopter blades along this styrofoam-made body of the craft. So there is no aerodynamic effect. There is a defect, but of a different kind. The defect in the theory. It is not flying upward because it's a helicopter propeller, that's obvious. The reason it is just on the verge of anti-gravity, basically a little bit, because it's a hybrid between the ducted fan. It creates some of the lift. The other lift is created by spinning the whole thing. What a better, how should I say, experimental verification of our mini theory that we created.